Hello and welcome to the last video of this course, which covers reporting. Now that we have covered all the basics to carrying out a successful measurement, you will have to put your data into an easily understood format. Pitch your technical report based on who is going to read it. If it's not an engineer, try to keep it very simple to understand. I like to make my reports very simple and to the point. Obviously, non-engineers will not understand all the measurement parameters, but a lot of people do understand KVA as it affects their pockets financially. Therefore, we can provide the information in a manner that can make sense to most people. The report should comprise exported screen captures or profiles of the data that is relevant to the scope of work, with a brief description of the findings in each of the screen captures or profiles. Where anything is specifically out of the norms or addresses the purpose of the measurement, make clear mention of it. There is no need to provide unnecessary data. This is my standard format for providing a measurement report. Number 1, description of the scope with a summary of the findings. Here you want to cover the location, the purpose of the measurements, the points measured, and the summary of the findings. Then, how was the measurement carried out? You want the dates that you performed the measurements, the durations, the connection points, the parameters and intervals used, the voltages or the voltage level, and the feeder ratings, as well as the CT ratios. Then you want to look at the relevant profiles with write-ups. So here you're going to provide screenshots of the relevant profiles with a little description or discussion on those profiles. Then you want to talk about relevant events with write-ups. Similarly, screenshot of the event and a discussion of the event. And then at the end, you want an overall result and analysis of findings, which will provide you with an analysis. Talk about possible causes that might result in whatever findings you found, and also talk about the maximum loads if you are looking at loads specifically. And then in your conclusion and recommendation, you can state if measurements provided are useful and provide the recommendations, and also advise if there are any further studies needed after performing the measurements. Now here's a typical report format where I cover the scope of work. So you're going to mention your company name, you're going to mention the site, the client name, the project name, then you mention the panel, you talk about the voltages and the KVAs, or your point of measurement, and then you talk quickly about what you have demonstrated in the report. Then your measurement method. Here's a summary of, not a summary, but basically what I would write in a measurement methodology. So basically we covered this already, and you see I've put in all caps the relevant information. So you're going to put your start day and date, you're going to put your end day and date, you have your measurement period, you have your averaging intervals, and you're going to talk about how you measured at which points, what were your CT ratios. Next, you have your current profile. So if you're measuring load and you're specifically looking for current, then you will provide a screenshot of the current profile, and you will provide the values of the maximum values and what the average values are, and whenever the maximum values occurred, so date and time is specific. And you will also talk about which phases. If the phases are very unbalanced, then you want to mention this as well. And you also want to talk about how much each phase is loaded relative to its design capacity. Then you have your power profiles. And your power profiles, you want to talk about your watts, your VARs, your VAs. And in here, you want to also mention date and time of maximum events. And you want to talk about what those maximum, the magnitude of those maximum events were relative to the design capacity of the system. Then you have your power factor profile. And here you're basically going to talk about your power factor during various times, or your power factor average. And this may only be relevant if you're looking at doing power factor correction, or highlighting to the client that there is in fact a very poor power factor at the facility. And then you got your results and analysis. So you're basically now talking about what your findings were, and you're analyzing it and providing a little bit of a recommendation on the analysis. And then your conclusion and recommendation, once again, you highlight what you have found and you talk about what you recommend. And once again, if there are further studies required, then you will mention that as well. And so that brings us to a recap now of this video. We basically talked about the overview of the report structure and the points to consider. We've talked about the report format and the sections. And we've talked about the clear conclusion and recommendation that's required in your report. And lastly, if any additional studies are required. So this brings us to the end of this course. I want to thank you all for watching this course and taking the time and making yourself available to attend. If you found any of this information useful, I hope you get to use it in your practical environment. And if there's any comments or feedback that you have about the course, whether they are positive or negative, I'd really like to hear. This is the first course that I have recorded, and you might be able to tell from the previous videos and going along through all the videos. However, there's always room for improvement, and if there's any further information required, I will leave my email address in the course as well, and if you have any questions, you're welcome to email me. Thank you, and I wish you all the best. Goodbye.